The Sacramento Kings and their fans are celebrating a sign and trade deal which will see them massively overpay for a 35-year-old shooting guard who has spent the past 6 seasons playing in basketball purgatory on teams not good enough to contend and not bad enough to tank. Ironically enough, it is a place the Kings find themselves firmly entrenched in today. As it stands right now, Sacramento is still only the 5th best team in the Western Conference. And that's if you're only super low on the Suns, Clippers, and Grizzlies. It is also very possible Houston takes another step forward this season and is in a mix fighting for the 5th and 6th playoff spots. Some may place the Kings in this blob of play-in team contenders alongside the Los Angeles Lakers, Golden State Warriors, and New Orleans Pelicans. Personally, I think Sacramento is a little better than this group, but they are far closer to these teams than they are to the top 4 contending sides in the Western Conference. Suffice to say, the Kings are not close to bringing a championship home to Sacramento, unlike the Sacramento Surge. Anyway, to understand how we got to this point, we need to take a trip back into recent basketball history. In the 2020 NBA playoff bubble thing we all would like to forget ever happened, the Houston Rockets and Oklahoma City Thunder squared off in a 4th, 5th seed first round playoff matchup. The 7-game series eventually saw the Rockets advance, but both franchises were heading in the same direction, that being down, and rapidly so. Meanwhile, the Sacramento Kings were enduring their 14th consecutive losing season, a streak that would extend out to 16 seasons before finally reaching the postseason. Somehow, someway, Oklahoma City is now one of the favorites to win the Western Conference in the 2024-25 season. What's more, it's easy to envision a scenario in which the Houston Rockets also finish ahead of the Kings next year. Both are young, up-and-coming teams with a plan in place. Sacramento, on the other hand, is surprisingly old, getting older, and seemingly on a path to nowhere. The floor for this team is the low lottery, and the absolute tippy-top ceiling for the Kings in 24-25 is a second-round playoff appearance, and for that to happen, a lot of things would need to break in their favor. The Sacramento Kings are stuck between mediocrity and a hard place, the worst existence an NBA franchise can find itself in. Scratch that, it's the second worst existence for an NBA team. The worst would be what the Kings went through in the 2010s or most of the 1990s. Bad decision makers, clueless coaches, and underwhelming players. In other words, a team that only a city starved for professional sports could ever love. There isn't a fan base in the NBA and maybe all of professional sports that has had to endure the absolute terribleness over sustained periods of time that Sacramento has endured. No Boston Red Sox fans and no Chicago Cubs fans. You thought you had it bad, but you have no idea what bad really is. You're just a bunch of whiners. Oh, I'm so sorry you had to deal with losing in the World Series. What a terrible existence. It straight up does not compare to dealing with this, or this, or this, or especially this. Notable guards drafted after Jimmer Fredette in 2011, Klay Thompson, Kawhi Leonard, and Jimmy Butler. But hey, at least the Kings wouldn't go on to waste more lottery picks on similar guards 2 to 3 years later. Let's just move past that. When tanking started to become acceptable for sports teams during the 2010s, a franchise like the Kings, who were losing with no real end goal in sight, finally had a blueprint on how to rebuild. Better yet, the rest of the foundation was already in place for a successful run. A new arena, a new ownership group, and a chance to hit the reset button on a franchise that was in the doldrums. Instead, nothing changed. I mean, names and faces changed, they came and went, but between 2012 and 2013 and 2021-2022, the Kings finished with between 27 and 33 wins. Well, apart from 2018-2019 when Sacramento nearly finished 500, its best record in more than a decade, and still fired Dave Yeager anyway. Back to that Houston-Oklahoma City first round matchup in the bubble. Those teams could have tried hanging on to their spots, making short-sighted moves in a bid to maintain the status quo or perhaps inch up a little bit. Instead, they took a step back, looked at the bigger picture, and went in an entire opposite direction, albeit for totally different reasons. Houston found itself dealing with an unhappy James Harden. The Rockets were basically forced into a rebuild that saw them waive John Wall, trade for John Wall, and waive him again in a span of 8 months. A wonderful series of transactions that doesn't get talked about nearly enough. Anyway, as for Houston, we don't know exactly what they are right now, but you would be optimistic about their future. They have, at the very least, a lot of exciting pieces they can do something with for years to come. As for Oklahoma City, they were already rebuilding with the 2019-2020 campaign, a bit of an anomaly. Instead of being fooled into thinking they were close to competing and making win now moves, they continue to push full steam ahead with their rebuild. The end result being the Thunder finished this season with the best record in the Western Conference. Further proof they went in the right direction. That's especially true considering they're now among the favorites to win it all this season. Returning our attention to the Sacramento Kings, they are looking squarely at a massive rebuild in the not too distant future. Domantas Sabonis is already 28 years old. De'Aaron Fox and Malik Monk are entering their 7th seasons in the NBA. Some improvement with this trio may happen at the margins, but they have all more or less peaked as basketball professionals. Soon to be 35, DeMar DeRozan has nowhere to go but down. Worse yet though, the Kings have added a notoriously bad defender to what is already one of the NBA's worst defensive teams. Also, Kings talking heads, I plead with you, I beg of you, for the love of Dwayne Coswell, stop saying DeMar DeRozan is the best free agent signing in team history. This is not a free agent signing. You do not give up an unprotected pick swap to sign a free agent. More importantly, DeRozan could decline at any second now. The move itself is basically Sharif Abdul-Rahim level, and then when they brought in the power forward, at least there wasn't a massive overpay, and he was still only 29 years old. I know some Kings fans out there are going to be shouting, Devin Carter is going to be a dude. Please stop. Despite regularly picking in the lottery for the better part of a decade now, Sacramento has only 2 of its first-round selections during this span on the roster, Fox and Keegan Murray. The folks out here going on and on about what Carter could become are the same ones who would not shut the hell up about Davion Mitchell playing defense in the Summer League. Also, screw you folks for totally wasting my time. Defense in the Summer League? Are you kidding me? I don't want to get sidetracked, but the point is this. When it comes to any Sacramento Kings draft pick, what they could be is irrelevant until they actually show they can hang on the court in the pros. Let's go back and talk about Keegan Murray for a second, because everyone in Sacramento, from the front office, the coaching staff, the fan base, believes this guy is going to take a huge star turn, that this guy is going to take a leap. It's all anyone wanted to talk about last offseason. Those rumblings are sure to pick up steam once more ahead of this season. It just totally ignores reality though. Keegan Murray is Harrison Barnes. Let me repeat that in case you didn't catch me. Keegan Murray is Harrison Barnes. They're basically the same size, have the same skill set, both were born and played high school ball in Iowa, for crying out loud. By the way, teams spent a lot of time and money hoping Barnes would develop into a player that just was never meant to be. They could never accept what he was. It was always going to be, well, maybe he can become something greater. And as far as Keegan Murray is concerned, it looks like he may go down that path as well. Of course, it is the presence of Barnes on the Kings roster that made the deal with DeRozan so peculiar. Sacramento had to include an unprotected 2031 pick swap with the Spurs to get them to take Harrison Barnes' salary, a needlessly high salary the Kings front office gave him as part of a totally unnecessary extension only 12 months earlier. One unforced error in the Barnes extension is now begetting what is likely to be another unforced error in the future with the pick swap. Seriously, think about when that pick swap is going to convey. DeRozan will be retired, and the current Kings core of Sabonis and Fox will be in their 30s and declining. Also, the team hopes to not be picking in the lottery over the next few years. The goal of this transaction is to get to the playoffs, but the question is now this: where the hell do those running Sacramento think they're going to be replenishing talent, especially by the time that pick swap actually comes to roost? It would be one thing if the Kings were a player away from being a contender or even a quasi-contender. They are not a 35-year-old shooting guard away from either of those statuses. Now, the team is mortgaging what on the surface appears to be a fairly bleak future anyway for what? The ability to lose in the first round of the postseason. It's all fairly stupid. Despite this, I get it. I get why the Kings are pursuing this dead end. It's the thirsty person in the desert hoping a mirage is real. Even the illusion of winning seems like something worth pursuing for a franchise like Sacramento. But the thing is, what is the real cost here? That would be long-term sustainable success that allows the franchise to compete for championships. Sacramentans have craved that from the very moment they were blessed with an NBA franchise, but by pursuing this patently false dawn, all you're doing is delaying that and potentially just derailing that forever. The shortcomings of the Kings have always been blamed on Sacramento being a small market team, but so too is Oklahoma City, and they are moving from one previously successful era to a second one. Milwaukee is a smaller market than Sacramento, and yet they have managed to not only get a new arena built there, but also win an NBA championship. You can't keep pinning this on being a small market team. As it stands right now, the Sacramento Kings are just stuck between mediocrity and a hard place. What kind of annoys me, though, is the path the front office and the coaching staff is choosing right now. We know all of these guys are going to be gone in the next few years. That's just how the NBA works. The contract dispute between Mike Brown and the Kings was never about how long is he going to coach the team. It was about how much money will he be given when he's told he's no longer going to be coaching the team. General Manager Monte McNair could be around by the time that pick swap conveys. Then again though, if the ceiling of the Kings is winning one playoff series over the next few years, is that enough to really keep him in that role? Better yet, is winning a single playoff series in the next 2 to 3 seasons worth delaying what is sure to be an inevitable rebuild? Make no mistake, on the not too distant horizon for the Sacramento Kings are losing seasons. Hopefully they do not strike until after DeRozan's contract expires, but these are hurtling down I-5 like an out-of-control semi-truck carrying tomatoes. Or is that I-80? Why are so many tomato trucks crashing around Sacramento? You know what? Let's not answer that. Let's not focus on that. Regardless, as it relates to the Sacramento Kings, the smart move, the smart plan of action would be trade Fox and Sabonis while they still have a lot of value, clear cap space for salary drums, and hoard draft picks. That is something that should have been done a decade ago, 5 years ago, you name it. Oh, hey, what do you know though? There has been one constant in Sacramento during those postponed, delayed, failed rebuilds. Go figure, right? Don't tell this to those myopic Sacramento Kings fans who, for whatever reason, believe the ownership group is turning this around. Maybe it's because they're being told by Sacramento Kings talking heads that things are getting better. Talking heads, by the way, who are either directly or indirectly somehow attached to the Kings payroll. That entire Kings fandom ecosystem was the one who would not shut up about Davion Mitchell being a lock for NBA first team all defense. You guys are pretty quiet about that now, though. I'm guessing that lot will be equally as silent when the Kings are surrendering a lottery pick to a Spurs franchise that has actually gone through a rebuild and is now on the ascendancy. Hey, at least we'll always have that Sacramento Surge championship. Thank you for watching this video. If you'd like to know the story of how the Sacramento Kings' greatest show on court side almost never came to be, video upper right hand corner of your screen. And to learn more about the Kings GM who was fired over about $120 worth of stamps, video lower right hand corner of your screen. Until next time, I'm Shine Hollis. This is the Touchback, and as always, hashtag take it out to the 25.